So you mentioned that good habitat will drive down some of the predator pressure. Is that because more like I will call it poor habitat? Is that because it puts them in the desperation mode? They're more likely to hit turkey because there's not as many options, or what's sort of what constitutes a good habitat and how that affects predators?
Sure, man. So I look at like quality habitat for turkeys in general. It's not a big mowed out area. A lot of people go, man, I love my mowed field, and that's where turkeys like to go because they'll strut there. And I'm like, yeah, but that's what kills turkeys too. And so when turkeys are in the wide open and they have visibility where something can see them from a long distance, it makes them most vulnerable for mammalian predators and especially aerial predators. We know that in some places that 30% of mortality of adult and juvenile turkeys, okay, the poults that are growing up, are picked off by avian predators, hawks and owls, basically. Owls are really bad on birds on the roost at night.
I was
Not
going to
many
say
people know
you
this.
mentioned the nighttime thing, and that would be
It's
exactly it.
it's terrible. So on the ground, the ideal situation, I used to do this with a hand to go. If a hen is on the ground moving through vegetation, then when she stands up and periscopes real high and she can see over the vegetation, that's usually ideal understory vegetation because they can creep down and get below and hide in the veg. Some birds will even sit down as an aerial swoop. I'll give you an example. When I was in Oklahoma, I got to turkey hunt for a couple of days for Rios. Um, and literally, we had two different predators target us that day. We're on the edge of a pasture, and this coyote heard us calling and come run across the pasture, hit the wood line with us, and was sneaking up the fence line. We had seven jakes come in, and we're videoing this. I'm like, "Is this dude gets a little closer? He's about to, he's about to taste it. He's about to have his day in heaven, and I'm gonna give it to him a little early." But we have this predator coming in. He ended up scenting us, and that's the only reason why he survived that day. But he's stalking these jakes. Within about
Hmm.
10 minutes, the jakes start coming back in. We're calling, trying to get them into the wood line, and we had a hawk come down and swoop and barely miss one. Okay, we're sitting one afternoon and we saw two different predators use two different methodologies to try to take out these birds. And so it's very clear to me, and I see it every year, but when you experience it firsthand, you understand that these predators are really efficient at what they do and they're very effective. But when they're in that wide open area, gosh, they're so susceptible to all these predators. So the ideal habitat, if there's this sea of understory where they can hide, get away underneath things, all of a sudden the likelihood of being picked off goes down dramatically. Does it mean that they still won't get picked off? No, not at all. But it increases their odds of survival. So having a great sea of understory habitat, not just saying, hey, I'm going to create 5 acres of brood range. It's like, no, you need to manage your whole property correctly. Because if you do that, you're helping not only wild turkeys, but a bunch of other species. And you're really deterring predators because predators have to use their eyes, nose, their senses to hone in on the birds that we love. And if we can put them in protection and not go out there and go, man, I just want to see them. I think I'm gonna do something to get to see them. So at this time of year, man, we're in May and June right now. And something we've been promoting and we've seen several others do the same is don't go out and recreational mow. And some people will go, man, what are you talking about recreational mowing? Oh, you know who you are. You the guy that's out there like, man, my weeds are getting high and I got to mow this down. Just don't do it. Just wait. Just wait. Because right now these hens are still in their nests. So you're likely going to run over a hen or a nest, kill her and or the poults. Or if the poults have hatched, these poults, their basically survival mechanism is when harm comes around,
Yep.
they sit down and sit
Yep.
tight. And so they get chewed up by the mower as well until they can fly. And so if people would just wait and get through most of June and go, you know what, get on that mower in July and mow if you got to mow. I would much rather you do it then than right now in May and June. With folks that have pastures and they're growing grass or hay, completely understandable. Man's got to make a living, and I'm never going to push a farmer back and go, don't do it. but just be smart about it, and think about how you can divvy that up and maximize some habitat and be looking out for the birds that we really appreciate and love right now.
Well, and what you just spoke to is an actionable item that any landowner can do to help encourage turkey populations in their area. And I mean, it's not every day that someone gets asked not to work, right? So
That's right.
sit back, have a sweet tea, watch the sunset.
Absolutely, man.
Don't worry about chopping the grass down. That's something.
It's simple. Hey, another place I've talked to so many landowners about is like, you get on your property and maybe you own 100 acres and you got like an access road going through it, right? And most everyone's like, man, I got to keep the edges really clean and all this jazz. Well, you can, but do it on a 2-year rotation. And people are like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, don't mow it every year, or pick one side of the road, your access road, to mow or clean up annually, right? But don't do it right now. Just wait till late summer, do it, and then leave one in structure. And what you will see is you will actually make multiple wildlife species feel comfortable coming out to the road edge because there's cover there. And so it's a real simple technique. And all it takes is just a little forethought. Go, you know what? I'm not going to mow it all down this year. Maybe I'll wait a year. And if you do it on a 2-year window, you're going to keep all your woody debris down and very manageable. If you wait to year 3 or later, that's when it gets really nasty. And then the cost to manage things goes through the roof. But if you do it on a 2-year cycle, you're going to be in good shape. And if you alternate sides of the road, man, you maximize your habitat all the way up to the road edge. And if you're one of them lazy guys or gals, like, man, I'm just going to sit on my ORVs. It's cold. I want to stay warm and watch critters. It's a great place to sit on the road, and critters will come right to the road edge. It's pretty simple.
So does that increase your odds with turkeys, utilizing rocks for digestion if you have cover on the road edge?
Grit, man. Absolutely. Yep. So they're going to come in and get that grit. And literally, they can get right back into cover really quickly. So if a hog or something,
they got a good source right there for everything. And sometimes there's a canal beside the road too. Like you got the whole mix right there.